So in the Blue Protocol community or YouTube space or whatever you want to call this mess right now, there's been a lot of discussion about whether the game is pay to win or not. And I have to say, I'm not going to take a side just yet. I feel like the game has pay to win elements that we're starting to see very early on, but I also feel like the game isn't going to be fully pay to win, and that's because of exactly what you're winning. And I know that people don't really like this version of pay to win, right? They believe that pay to win is any form of paying to progress or for convenience. It's still winning, right? But I generally believe that Blue Protocol being a PvE game, winning means progression, so this is just pay to progress. I don't like using the term pay to win because I think it's just too vague. I'm just gonna specify it as pay to progress or pay for convenience because that's what Blue Protocol is. And I still have a problem with those things. I'm not saying they're good things, and I'm not saying that they're justified by me changing a letter. There's been a lot of discourse about those aspects of the game, and I have to say, I don't believe that they're gonna be in the final game to this extent and to what people are suggesting. I feel like there's still a lot of room for change here. The game hasn't even released its Japanese version, let alone the global, so we don't really know how people will react to a lot of the things in this game. We don't know how the developers intend to implement a lot of the things in this game, so that is something that we actually have to just kind of sit back, relax, and wait and see on. Let's talk about this. So Blue Protocol is confirmed to be a free-to-play game, which I think is the first culprit of these problems, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about that later. First of all, let's talk about what the game is actually monetized with, just so we can know what we're dealing with here. They're going to try and mainly monetize through cosmetics, and they're going to monetize season passes and a sword and a gacha system. Cosmetics will mainly include weapon skins, accessories, costumes, emotes, hairstyles, underwear, dyes, and other things, right? A lot of things, but they stated that none of the things that they're selling will make the content easy. So basically they want them to be entirely optional cosmetic items, right? They want them to be things that you can look at and go, ooh, shiny, but they don't take away from your experience of Blue Protocol. However, there are a few outliers. If I continued down that list, I would have eventually reached a point where I started talking about instant mission finish items. Instant mission finish items. Again, this is something that I feel like is terrible. Like the way it sounds is terrible, but, and this is a big but, I imagine this being something that doesn't come out with the initial launch of the game. I imagine this being something that they actually release later as people manage to reach endgame. You know, a lot more players start to reach endgame. There's going to be people who are doing the game for the first time a bit later than others, or, you know, they're trying to start another account, they're doing things. This is something that they might drop later on in a few months' time. We don't know exactly how close to the launch window an instant mission finish item will drop. However, instant mission finish items are terrible for a game because the whole point of a game is to play that game. But I guess if you can pay your way through the game and that's something that they're okay with people doing, they're going to do it. So yeah, that's something that they're selling, which I think is ridiculous. They're also selling buff items, character slots, and XP increase items. Now, the buff items I can see only being really minute. Maybe they speed up your walking speed. Maybe they speed up your attack damage by like 0.25%. Who knows how effective these buffs are going to be. No one's actually specified these buffs. I think that they're not going to be as crazy as they sound, but nonetheless, buffs are a stupid thing to sell. They're not welcome to sell. I don't think it's a good idea to sell buffs to people in a game when you blatantly stated that there will be no items that make content easy. Again, that just feels like more of a lie with the things I read out. XP increase items. Again, similar to buffs, they're not going to be super effective, but they're going to be effective enough, right? They're going to be things that you'll notice that you don't have, which is a problem. And they're basically starting to sell advantages, which I am not happy with. I think it's not okay to start selling XP increases. I know like people are going to say, what exactly does XP do for you? Well, XP is leveling up. It's progression. It's getting you stronger. You know, I don't just assume that your stats are going to stay the exact same with levels, even though, you know, that's just not how games work. The higher your level, usually the higher your stats, the more you can keep up with the content. So if you're doing that at a faster rate than others, it'll make them feel like they're not able to keep up, you know, and people start getting left behind. And, you know, this whole thing, let's face it, MMOs is kind of a race at the start, right? Everyone just wants to reach endgame as fast as possible. You have the few outliers that do want to enjoy the game and actually do want to experience what's there, but you mainly have the people just focused on getting to endgame, getting their gear maxed out, and just, you know, being absolute gods at the game straight away from jump. So, you know, these are the kind of target market for XP increase items, because they're going to be the ones to just want to, you know, buy XP increases or buy mission finish items where you can skip missions to get even further, and you'll probably be able to still get the rewards for the mission anyway. Now, I don't know how exactly these things are going to be implemented. Again, I mentioned earlier before that you could maybe see them come into the game in some form of seasonal update. So maybe they don't launch with the initial launch of the game and they come later on as the seasons progress, so that people who are joining at a later point can catch up, and they basically work to a certain point, and then after that they become grayed out in the item store. I see them probably trying to make as much money off this as possible, so that probably won't happen. Now, the main major issue I'm going to have is with this thing called plugs, and these plugs are a nightmare, and I will explain them in a future video when I talk about the weapons and combat, but I have to talk about them here very briefly. So basically, a plug is kind of a tool that is used to open weapon slots, and these weapon slots have a chance of opening or a chance of failing to open, and when you fail to open them, you lose your plug. But when you do successfully open them, you still lose your plug. So either way, you're losing these plugs, and to get more plugs, you're going to have to grind. You're going to have to craft them, because you can't buy them from the shops in game, and you can't buy them from the item store, or so they say, because apparently you can go ahead and buy the materials for these plugs via the item store. Now, a lot of games do actually limit materials, and they limit the amount of materials you're able to buy from the item store. There's a chance that Blue Protocol doesn't actually, you know, let you buy an infinite amount of these materials, but they're still available for purchase. And again, I find myself asking the question, why? Why Blue Protocol? Why? A lot of this game, it's very questionable right now. There's a lot of bad decisions that is happening, and there's nothing we can do as a player base to kind of stop them and coax them out of it, other than, you know, kind of just look at this and say, no, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. But we all know we're going to end up playing the game regardless. I'm just trying to say, I'm going to be a bit more optimistic about how I view these things. I feel like the timing and the release of these cash shop pay to win items that they're actually releasing might just be a bit off. I don't feel like we're looking at it the way they're looking at it, and they have a different idea of how they're going to implement these things. Because let's face it, if they do drop this game and it does come with things that allow you to skip quests, or even worse, there's one that they mentioned where you're able to buy bonus rewards from a quest if you do the extra bonus missions on the quest, but you can buy your way through those bonus missions. So basically, you're able to buy the bonus rewards. You're not buying yourself the completion of the bonus missions, you're buying the rewards. Let's just face it, that's what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. So they're trying to loophole a lot of this pay to win stuff behind a lot of other mechanics in the game, and I'm just saying it looks really sketchy. It looks very anti-consumer, and it's not something that you'd want to associate this game with right now, especially so early, because the only thing that's going to happen is an echo chamber of negative stigma of pay to win, you know, hate is going to come around your game before the game even releases. And because YouTube and Twitch and content creation is mainly fueled by negativity these days, a lot of people are going to fixate on this. A lot of people are not going to let this go the entire time this game is being developed, and this is going to scar your game. So I am just hoping that the devs at Blue Protocol understand that a lot of these mechanics do not work in the West, and that is why I still have hope, and I haven't pointed that this game is pay to win just yet, because they are releasing two versions of this game, people. Two. They're releasing a Japanese version, they're releasing a global version. My hope is that a lot of the sketchiness that we are reading here only applies to the Japanese version of Blue Protocol. And I understand that that's very unfair to Japanese players, because they don't deserve to deal with pay to win mechanics, but that's more of a commodity over in the East anyway. In the West, we very much disagree with pay to win in any form. We can call it pay to progress, we can call it pay for convenience, we can call it pay to whatever. It's usually something that is an incentive for us to actually buy it, right? It's something that gives us a boost. It's a boost, right? If we're paying for any sort of boost or any sort of thing to speed up or, you know, kind of enhance our experience, let's face it, we're paying to win, right? I'm not gonna like paint or sugarcoat this anymore. I feel like I'm not gonna have a direct stance on this just yet. I'd rather let developments happen and let more dev streams come out, and let's find out more information about the monetization of this game and find out, exactly what's going on. And if you'd actually like to know what you can buy and, exactly what you can find in the stores and the season passes and how those things are going to work, I have a video on that right now in the top right corner. You can go ahead and click on, because I feel like that's very important, especially if you want to know if this is a game that you think you can spend your money on. This is a game that you feel like is worth investing a decent amount of your money into, because let's face it, seeing it might be pay to win is not looking really, really good. It's looking very whale friendly, and you know what? That's never really a good thing. Now, this whole issue of pay to win and, the negative sentiment, I believe, could have been avoided entirely. They didn't even have to go down this route of monetization. I feel like with there being a gap in the market right now for a truly anime inspired MMO RPG, because let's face it, a lot of them are terrible, we could have actually just had a game where a lot of people would have been happy to pay real money for it. Not a ridiculous amount of money, but I'm sure a lot of people would have been able to buy a copy of Blue Protocol, and you would have had a decent player base. You wouldn't have had a small player base. A lot of people are very excited to play Blue Protocol. It's a next-gen MMO RPG, for crying out loud. The problem is they decide to launch a free-to-play game, and every time I see a free-to-play game, I assume it's a shop, because that's usually what free-to-play games are. That is what a free-to-play game is. It's just a shop. Imagine you walk into a store and there is milk all the way at the back. That is basically what is reaching endgame in a free-to-play game. You're trying to get to the milk and there's all this shit in the way, and your journey through the game is getting to that milk, right? You're going through this giant store and you're seeing all the cosmetics and shit that you can't buy because you only have money for that milk, or you only have time to get that milk. And basically, I know this is a weird analogy, but eventually on your way to and from that milk in the store, you will end up buying something. That is what free to play is about, right? It's about letting people in so that they can buy shit. It's about creating a store. It's about creating something that you can return to every day. And it's already being said that Blue Protocol has dailies and things that they want players to log back in for, like events. It's very, it's seeming more and more like this is going to be a game that's going to be more oriented and focused on its monetization than its actual content. And that's something I'm very scared of. And with a lot of the monetization being around the shop and the cash shop, you can only assume that the best cosmetics and mounts will go into that area of the game. Again, emphasis on the word assume, because we can't be exact with these things. So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. And this is very sad for me, because this is the first negative video I've ever made about Blue Protocol. If you even want to call it a negative video, it's more of an exposed video. I feel like this game isn't set in stone entirely yet. We haven't even played the closed beta, so we don't really know exactly what the deal is with this pay to win stuff that they're talking about right now. Pay to win is a scar that you cannot remove from your game. Once your game is known to be pay to win, that is all it will ever be known as, a pay to win game. And people in the West won't even give it the light of day. A lot of people will not even give it a look. A lot of people, once they hear pay to win, their brain is immediately switched off it. They are no longer interested. They no longer want to play. And a lot of things are pay to win, but it's how they go about hiding these things, right? A lot of games are actually pay to win, and there's a lot of incentives and bonuses for buying things in games. And usually that's okay. But when you're saying that your games will have no content or items in the stores that provide an advantage to the gameplay, but then you do that anyway, it feels very disingenuous. And this is the first time that the developers and Bandai Namco have kind of betrayed me in a sense, because I'm not going to speak for the fans, I'm going to speak for myself. I feel betrayed here. I feel like they lied to us with how they were talking about the game being free to play friendly before. Now, my intention was never to be free to play in the first place. I was always going to buy their seasonal passes and buy some skins from the store if I like them. But this is still something that I feel like it might hurt the game negatively. I hope it doesn't, but again, it's something that's hard to shake. Other than that, we have other videos that are definitely a lot more positive, and I just want to know what you guys think about this entire situation, because this is only my perspective, and it's a bit unfair if you're watching this video. I want to have a discussion with you guys, and I want to talk to you guys directly, so I'll be answering comments that you guys may have about this discussion in the comments below, obviously, and yeah, we can talk about this, or you guys can go ahead and check out some of my other content. I am covering this game, and I will be covering this game regardless of this content. I have hope that it will be good and will be something where the pay to win isn't its entire identity, even if there are pay to win mechanics, and it's something I will never support. But it is truly sad to see that Blue Protocol has some pay to win elements in it.